The movie starts by showing a man sitting in a small confinement. He is being briefed by the correctional officers, who are telling him what not to do and what he should do. The man is Reuben. The next scene shows Reuben being brought to his cell where his cellmate, Carlos, is already present. Carlos seems scary and tough, making a joke, "I'll take his eyes out," referring to Reuben. Reuben is scared of his cellmate but can't do anything about it. He goes up to the top bunk bed where he is assigned. He then pulls out a photograph of a little girl and looks at it longingly. Carlos waits for the officers to leave. When he sees that they're not in sight anymore, he immediately goes to attack Reuben, choking and threatening him. Reuben then goes down from the top bunk to attack Carlos back, and the scene ends with Reuben returning to his bed. Reuben walks along the cafeteria-like place of the prison alone, trying to find a seat while all the inmates watch him. He ends up sitting alone in the corner. Carlos, together with another inmate, mocks him, saying, "He won't last a day here." The other inmate agreed. Reuben is shown lying in his bed, sleeping deeply. He has a nightmare, a flashback of a past car accident involving a dead girl. Every inmate is doing their own thing, and Reuben walks in to find something to do. He sees Carlos and the other inmate from earlier, approaches them, and asks if he can use the gym equipment they are using. They told him to fuck off. Reuben leaves and starts picking up cigarette butts. He approached a group of sitting inmates to ask if they have a light. He was then approached by a fully tattooed guy who asked if he was lost and threatened him. Carlos and his inmate buddy was watching what's happening but did nothing to intervene. The tension is heavy, but Reuben walks away from the group. While walking, Reuben is followed by a guy. He asked Reuben if he needs a light but got ignored. Reuben continues to walk, ignoring the guy. The guy spoke in Mexican, so Reuben looked back at him. He stopped walking and responded in Mexican. The man offered him a light and mentioned he saw Reuben picking up cigarette butts, asking if Reuben had any cigarettes with him. Reuben said he was good and thanked the man. The man then offered him more cigarettes and put them in his pocket. Carlos watched them again, seeming suspicious of the man. That night, Reuben and Carlos were lying in their own beds. Carlos initiated a conversation, asking if Reuben was still up. Reuben responded with, "What's up?" Carlos began telling Reuben a story about someone in the county who had given him advice on surviving in prison. After the story, Carlos handed Reuben something. Reuben asked what it was, and Carlos said it could be used to call his girlfriend. Reuben told Carlos he didn't have a girlfriend. Carlos then suggested calling his boyfriend for money. Reuben got angry and threw the box, shouting, "I don't want your fucking help." Carlos was shocked and insisted Reuben take it, saying he didn't owe him anything. Reuben was on the phone with his mother, asking about his daughter and a man named Julio who seemed dangerous. He appeared very worried about the people he left outside. It turned out Julio was his cousin and involved in the mafia. Carlos is making something inside their cell. Reuben woke up to the sound of pouring. It was Carlos pouring the thing he is making to a container with a strainer in it. He asked Carlos, "What is it?" and Carlos said it makes them money. Carlos made him try the drink, but he didn't like it. Turns out Carlos never drinks what he sells. Reuben was in the chapel praying together with Carlos' buddy. The guy who gave him cigarettes last time appeared. He wants something in exchange of the cigarettes he gave. He told Reuben that he wants what Carlos is selling. Reuben told him to buy it. But the man insisted that Reuben is there to get him the stuff and tries to stop Reuben from leaving. Carlos appeared and a man stopped bothering Reuben. Reuben left, leaving the man and Carlos alone. The two talked and there was a tension between them. Carlos talked about the guy's little brother and the guy seemed scared after that. He looked away from Carlos. Carlos left after, shortly. Reuben was sweeping the kitchen floor and stopped. A flashback happened. It shows a long-haired man telling him to drive a girl home safe. The girl is named Adriana and the guy is Julio. The man doesn't want the mafia to know about her. The flashback continues with the man seemingly talking to Reuben. The man told him about they both knew who died cruelly in the hands of the mafia. It was still a flashback and Reuben was sitting in a car waiting for Adriana. They engaged in a conversation for a while and Reuben drove the car after. Carlos and Reuben's relationship improved. Reuben helped Carlos get ingredients from the kitchen, while Carlos taught him boxing techniques to defend himself. Reuben became involved in Carlos' business and developed better relationships with fellow inmates. The two grew closer, even starting to make drinks together. One night, Reuben fell ill, and Carlos made him medicine. They couldn't sleep afterward, so Carlos asked Reuben how he ended up in prison. Reuben recounted his story. He worked for the mafia, driving girls to work and back home. He mentioned liking Adriana, a girl off limits because she was special to Julio. A flashback ensued, showing Reuben and Adriana talking, flirting, kissing, and eventually having sex in the backseat of the car he drives for the girls. The scene shifted to a car accident where Reuben woke up with an unconscious Adriana beside him. She died instantly. Carlos comforted Reuben after he shared his story. Reuben asked Carlos of his release date, but Carlos did not tell him. He advised him to never to disclose his release date, as it could lead to attempts of other inmates to keep him in prison. He then asked Reuben what he would do once released. Reuben expressed a desire to reconnect with his daughter. During a lockdown, Reuben inquired about Carlos' comment on not being able to differentiate between men and women after a long time in prison, indicating that Carlos may be gay. Reuben continues to question, telling Carlos he told him about himself. He then asked Carlos about his last cellmate named Alex. Carlos told him about when you love a brother they don't fuck with your head and there's no complications, meaning there might be something that happened between him and his former cellmate. Carlos started telling Reuben about what happened with his former cellmate. How he discovered that he was gay. Reuben started telling him things too about Adriana. Then Carlos dropped the bomb. He discovered that his former cellmate Alex is his brother. After that emotional opening up, the tension between them arises. Reuben pulled Carlos and kissed him everywhere in his face to comfort him. Carlos just lets him. Reuben continued his ministrations and Carlos just goes with the flow. They continued to make out and had sex inside the cell. Morning came and they were sleeping while hugging. The correctional officer knocked in their cell, waking up both of them. She made Reuben kneel and face the bed while instructing Carlos to fix his things. It was the day Carlos will leave prison. Reuben, not grasping the situation properly, asked Carlos what is happening but got no answer in return. Carlos gets up with his things and Reuben panics. He tries to stop Carlos from leaving and to answer his questions. The officer tells him to put his hands behind his back and he was left there alone crying. 3 years later, Reuben got out of prison too. He is a free man now, but he is also burdened by his past. He seemed excited to call his family, but he discovered that the line was already disconnected. He continued to leave the prison gate, unsure of what awaited him outside. Once he finally got out, he appeared very emotional and was breathing heavily. Reuben tried to contact his family again. This time, he was successful and reached a cousin. He learned that his mother had died and his daughter was now in Julio's care. He tried to ask his cousin about Julio's whereabouts, but no one had seen him recently. Reuben then called the phone operator to get the numbers for places where Julio might be. Reuben tried to track down Carlos. Unsure where to go, he was determined to find him. He hitchhiked and walked around until he successfully located Carlos, who now owned an auto repair shop. Carlos was shocked to see Reuben in front of him. The two went outside the shop to talk. Reuben accused Carlos of doing all the things he had warned him about in prison, saying, "All the things you warned me about, you did them." Carlos did not deny his actions. Furious, Reuben started to leave, but Carlos provoked him. Reuben turned back and attacked Carlos, leading to a brawl on the ground. In the end, Reuben got up first. He took a deep breath, calming himself down. Then he went back in front of Carlos to offer his hand to help him stand up. Carlos, baffled, still took Reuben's hand. After that, they nodded at each other, acknowledging what happened. Then they continued to talk. Carlos admitted that he was embarrassed that he didn't tell Reuben that he will be leaving soon. He admitted that he just ran away and that he was really sorry for what he's done. Carlos asked Reuben how did he found him. Reuben told him that he called every shop in Lynn County to find him. Carlos was surprised he did that only to find him. Carlos then asked him where he is staying. Reuben said nowhere. Carlos then continues to ask about where his family was, but Reuben stayed silent. Carlos invited him to stay with him and his girlfriend in his house for the night. Reuben tried to refuse and left. Before dinner, a drunk Reuben appeared in front of Carlos' house. Carlos opened the door for him. Noticing he is drunk, he told Reuben that he thought he wouldn't show up anymore, but he still welcomes him inside his house. Dinner started with a prayer. Carlos and Reuben is with Carlos' girlfriend and his mother. Carlos' mom asked Reuben how does it feel to be free. He said it was surreal. While Carlos and Reuben was talking, Carlos' girlfriend is watching them. Reuben noticed her and asked how did the two meet. The girl replied that Carlos fixed her car and Reuben smiled at her and made a remark that makes them uncomfortable. "It's so easy to fall in love with this guy, huh?" Everyone went silent and the girlfriend looked at him, catching up on what can be the relationship between the two during their stay in the prison. Even Carlos' mother looked up when she noticed the weird atmosphere. Reuben said sorry to Carlos' mother and excused himself to go to his room. He kissed Carlos' mother's cheeks before leaving. Carlos also got up to help Reuben to his room. The two was in the room. Carlos tucked Reuben into bed, placing a blanket over him, and then sat down beside him. He advised Reuben to lay off the drinking while adjusting his pillow. Reuben got up and tried to kiss Carlos, but Carlos avoided the kiss. Carlos then stood up and turned off the lights. Morning came and Carlos' mom is in the kitchen cooking. Carlos enters the kitchen and his mom asked about Reuben. Catching up on her son's relationship with Reuben, she advised Carlos to get rid of one of his friends, the girlfriend or Reuben. Carlos and his girlfriend got into an argument about last night, and before she left, she called Carlos a faggot. Carlos tried to stop her, but didn't insist in the end. Reuben asked Carlos what they were when they were in prison because it's confusing him. Carlos said it's confusing to him too. He added that he also do that to girls, so don't take it personal. Reuben asked if he could stay a bit longer in Carlos' house until he figures out how to get his daughter from Julio. Carlos agreed and reassured him that he won't be alone doing that. The two went to meet Saul, their old prison buddy. They went drinking and used some substance to get high. Saul told Reuben that Carlos really loves him. They had fun with their high. The two had sex again that night. In the shop, Reuben saw a plugged phone and got an idea. He unplugged the phone and goes outside. He calls someone to get Julio's number. Reuben and Carlos' mom was left alone in the house. They were eating when Carlos' mom asked about his family. Their conversation continued and Carlos' mom talked about colonization and history and how it does not teach men to be men. Carlos and Reuben's relationship get better as time passes by. Reuben's relationship with Carlos' mom also got better. They bond over cooking. The two was laying on their bed talking about life and how they're going to be two dads in the future. One day Reuben got a call from Julio. He wants to meet Reuben to talk man on man. Reuben goes up to Carlos to say goodbye, telling him that he needs to take care of something. They kissed, Carlos immediately understanding what it's about. Carlos gets inside their room and noticed the vault is open. The gun he showed Reuben is missing. He realized that Reuben ran away and got very angry. His mom tried to comfort him, telling him that Reuben has things he needed to do. His mom reassured him that Reuben loves him. He discovered a note at the back of the small drawing Reuben left him. It was a note saying that if everything goes well, they'll meet the next morning. The note also indicates a meeting place. Reuben goes to the place where Julio and his daughter are. It was heavily guarded by mafia guards, but he managed to slip through. He managed to find his daughter Marissa. He kissed her cheeks and it woke her up. She looked so happy when she opened her eyes and saw her father. He tried to ask her to go with him, but she refused, saying she wants to stay. He told her that he's sorry and he loves her, then agreed to come with him. He carried his daughter and ran outside. When they were at a safe distance, he told her to escape. He went back inside and goes to Julio's room. He hesitates to kill Julio, so instead of shooting him while he's asleep, he just left Adriana's necklace at his bedside table. But Julio is awake, and when he turns around to leave, Julio spoke up while pointing a gun at him. They had a confrontation about Marissa and Adriana's death. Reuben tried to calm Julio down. Julio cocked the gun and aimed it at Reuben. He grabbed the gun and pointed it at his chest, telling Julio to shoot him. Julio realizes that he can't do it. Instead, he hugs Reuben and told him to promise he'll take care of Marissa, his daughter. The scene ended with Marissa waiting for her dad in the car. Carlos fell asleep in his car waiting for Reuben in their meeting place. He woke up and Reuben is still not there. He got mad and decided to leave. But then he stops. He spots far away a car driving. He gets out of his car, assuming it was Reuben. It was him. He waited for Reuben, teary-eyed, happy that he came back unsafe. When Reuben got out of the car with his daughter, Carlos and him looked at each other for a while. Then they went in for a hug and kissed. Reuben introduced Marissa to Carlos and they greeted each other. The two watched Marissa going up the snow hill. They smiled and kissed again. The film ended with the three of them running up the snow hill and having a snowball fight at the top.